Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for this next 45 minutes or so. We're going to be talking about maximizing well-being for our loved ones who have memory loss, a challenging subject in these days, particularly with the physical isolation that many of us are challenged with to ensure that everyone stays safe. I'm Ben Allen. I'm Programs and Education Specialist at Alzheimer's Orange County, and we're glad you're with us. We look forward to hearing from you, whether it's a greeting or question in the comments box. Please feel free to type your questions, and we'll do our best to monitor that and address your questions as we go along. We want to thank Irvine Clinical Research for their ongoing programs, one of our longtime partners. So well-being, the opposite of well-being is distress. And what we've learned is that distress is often the result of an unmet need. And the challenge for us as caregivers, family caregivers, or professional caregivers, is to discern what the need is, especially when our loved ones are losing their ability to communicate clearly or to communicate at all. Now, some of you have heard my story. My wife, Judy, diagnosed with Alzheimer's 11 and a half years ago. She has a significant impairment and is no longer able to really communicate except to answer yes or no questions on occasion. She doesn't always respond, and then there are days where it's clear she's just not feeling well and she doesn't respond at all. So discerning what those needs are can be a real challenge. And so we want to talk about needs and how we respond, because our approach to our attempts to address those needs don't always work, and we often have to find alternative ways to get across some way of providing comfort, reassurance, and some way for our loved ones to be engaged with us and with the world around them. So let's talk a little bit more about needs. Now, you've probably heard about Maslow's pyramid of basic human needs, that there are levels of needs in Maslow's theory, beginning with the physiological, our physical needs, that we have shelter, we have adequate food and water and so on. And once that level of need is met, then we need to ensure our safety. We all need to have a sense of safety, of security. And when that level is met, we need to know that we are loved, that we have the opportunity to love others and be loved in return and belong. We have a need to belong to a group, to be a functioning member of society. And then as we move up the pyramid, esteem, we need to have a sense that we are important, that I, in my efforts to make a difference in this world, really do make a difference. And lastly, at the top of the pyramid, the self-actualization, that is, that I do have some control over circumstances, and I have the ability to exercise influence to accomplish things, to meet the needs of other people, to create, and so forth. And so that's the basis of needs, and we do our best to ensure that our loved ones have those levels of needs met. So now if we look at that in the context of dementia, whether we're talking about Alzheimer's or any other form of dementia, you may know that Alzheimer's is just one kind of dementia, or another way of putting that is one cause. There are many different causes of dementia. Dementia is just a general term that describes the symptoms of cognitive impairments, whether that's memory or thinking or emotional regulation, sensory perception, and ultimately the fundamental basic automatic processes that our brain manages without us even being aware of it. All of those are cognitive functions that at some point in the progression of the disease will be impaired. So cognitive impairments, in general, those are dementia. Alzheimer's is one cause, the primary cause, the most common form of dementia. So when we look at this pyramid, what we're calling the well-being pyramid, we have different levels, and it's an expansion, essentially, of Maslow's theory, but more specific to needs as our loved ones may relate to them. So identity, for example, each of us has a unique identity. Our loved ones, as their symptoms are progressing, are facing more and more challenges. And sometimes we, as observers, may feel like our loved ones are no longer the person we knew. In the case of a spouse, we might say, and I've heard this many times, this isn't the person I married. The reality is, the personality is unchanged. Their personality is still there, but they're challenged in expressing it. And so we have to help them find ways to communicate, to express to their world who they are, their identity, their uniqueness. Connectedness, just like we talked about in Maslow's pyramid, to be part of a group, to be connected, whether it's one-on-one. When I'm with Judy, I'm looking for ways to make a connection, some kind of interaction, and we all have that need. In our case, often that connectedness for Judy is with a professional caregiver. And you know, I can see just a beautiful connection between them, and less so for me. And that's a challenge as a family caregiver, a family member, where the relationship is changing. Their personality may be expressed in different ways, and they're still the same person. And so it's my job to figure out how to navigate that. And that's what we want to talk about today, to help find ways to navigate these challenges. So security, also expressed very clearly in Maslow's pyramid. We need to know that we are safe. Our loved ones need to know that they are safe. And the world in which they live is a frightening place. And so the level of anxiety that they feel is often higher than we might expect, because much of what happens around them is confusing. It's hard for them to make sense out of it. And so we need to be extra diligent about communicating that we're there. We're helping to ensure their safety, that we're going to be in this together. At the same time, they need to feel a sense of autonomy. That is, to be able to make decisions, to act on situations, to act in the sense of taking care of themselves to the extent that they are able. And so we need to be careful not to take over everything. We want to allow our loved ones to make decisions where it's reasonable and safe, to perform tasks that they're able to perform, because then we are ensuring we are supporting their awareness, their sense of autonomy. Meaning is something that we all strive for. And for our loved ones, it's even more challenging. They want to know that what they do makes a difference. And so our responses to them are opportunities to help them be engaged, to give them a sense of meaning, of having a meaningful life. It can be a big challenge for us, and we don't always get it right. We do our best, and we try things, and when it doesn't work, we adjust. When we talk about communication and connecting with our loved ones, we talk about adjusting, that it's our job to adjust and to help our loved ones engage and find meaning. So one example of finding meaning is to create. And we all have a desire to create. As I have found in the midst of pandemic and isolation, I have looked for projects around the house that I could do things to create beauty, to create order, to take a closet or the garage that's in disorder and to create some order, some pleasing environment. And that gives me a sense of meaning. And so we want to find ways to allow our loved ones to do that. So there are lots of ways, and we talk about this in workshops on planning activities, but just one example, and you may know that I'm involved in the art program, Memories in the Making. So helping our loved ones to be involved in an expressive art. Maybe it's singing, maybe it's gardening, anything that involves us creating something new, creating order, gives us a sense of meaning. And our loved ones need to have that sense just as much as we do. And that leads us to the opportunity for growth. We might think of our loved ones as, you know, they've reached their limit, but that isn't the case. There are always new things that they can experience and enjoy. And so we want to find those things that will give them an opportunity to accomplish something, to exercise a skill. And while we might think, well, if we help them to do something new and they get it, they're not going to remember how to do it the next time. And that may be true, may not, depending on what stage our loved ones are in. In some cases, they may have the ability to learn and to remember the next time. But even if they don't, they still have the satisfaction of doing something new in the present. And more, their lives are in the present. The past is fading, the future is unclear. And so we want to help them stay focused in the present and creating and learning and growing, exercising our abilities, whether they are physical or cognitive. And all of that leads to the pinnacle of the pyramid, in this case, joy. And we all have a need to experience and to express our experience, our appreciation for the beauty, the accomplishment. So personally, for me, one of the things that I invest in my own well-being is I'm just purposeful about looking for beautiful things, whether it's flowers on the table. Right here on my table, there's a poinsettia that's just beautiful, and I appreciate that every time I look at it. Or I look out the window, I see a sunrise or a sunset, or the color of the trees that are turning with the coming of fall. All of those are expressions of joy. And the challenge for us, again, as caregivers, is to find ways to help our loved ones experience that joy, to experience all of these that contribute to well-being. That's our goal. And that's going to require changes on our part because we may have patterns, routines that we have developed over the years. We may have decades of relationship with our loved one, and we tend to expect, well, we've always done it this way, so that's the way it's going to continue. And the reality is that that's just going to lead to frustration on everybody's part. So we have to adapt. That's our job. That's our challenge. That gives us meaning and opportunities for growth. When I learn new things, when I find ways that I can contribute to my wife's well-being, then I feel a sense of satisfaction. I mean, clearly I'm investing in her well-being, but I benefit too. I mean, it just kind of washes over me when she's in a good mood. She's enjoying music, for example, which is the primary way that she and I engage, that she enjoys the present, is listening to music. And I'm enjoying it. I'm singing along with the music when I can, when it's in my vocal range. And boy, that feels good. That's a good thing for me. And just as I've said, these apply to our loved ones, they apply to ourselves as well. And so we need to be purposeful about connectedness, staying in touch with other people, exercising our autonomy, doing something that we know makes a difference, whether it's in the lives of our loved ones who have some kind of cognitive impairment, memory, or other in other ways, but we're helping them, and that gives us a sense of meaning. And we help them grow, and we grow. They experience joy, we experience joy. That's our hope. Now, it doesn't always work that way. It doesn't always work as smoothly. And so this illustration helps us think about where our loved ones are in the moment. What's their mood? If they're in the green, which is what we hope, they're contented. When we talk about activities for our loved ones, we want them to be contentedly engaged. And we help them to find ways to do that. But sometimes things start to get a little bit off, and we can see that our loved ones are developing some frustration. And if that goes unchecked, they're going to move into typically anger. And if we don't help them get out of that, they're going to go right into furious and maybe hostility and physical aggression. And so we want to do our best to help them stay in the green and stay out of the red. So how do we do that? So let's think about our approaches. We make an attempt, and we'll call that an approach. And those attempts that we make often fail because we haven't accounted for what our loved ones need. We tend to react instead of taking time to breathe, take a deep breath, think about what the need is, observe our loved ones, see what kind of cues we might be able to pick up from their body language or their verbal expressions, and not react, because our reactions tend to be out of emotion and an emotion that may not be what we want to communicate to our loved ones. Our emotions make a difference. Our emotions, our body language communicates to our loved ones just as powerfully as their body language communicates to us. So we want to avoid being reactive by slowing down, taking a breath. It's like I'm doing right now, because when I'm speaking and talking on a subject that that I'm very much excited about, I tend to talk faster and my voice goes up in pitch, and I have to slow down. And we want to do the same thing when we're with our loved ones. Slow down, observe, think about what the meaning is, think about how we want to respond, not to react. Now, often our approaches, we think they're communicating, we think they're going to be helpful, but they just don't resonate with our loved ones. For example, if I'm talking about something and I use a football analogy, thinking that that's going to make everything clear, but my loved one doesn't really care or know about football, then whatever I say is meaningless. So our approach, our attempts to communicate, to connect, to help them to engage, need to be on their level, on things that they're interested in. So we talk about person-centered care. That is, whatever we do, we plan based on what we know about our loved ones, based on what we know they like, what they're interested in. For Judy, children, she was a nursery school teacher and always has and still does love children. So if there's a child, a baby around, that's going to get her attention. And so I want to support that. I want to allow her to engage in that way. And that's person-centered care. So any activities that we might plan for our loved ones are planned based on what we know they like. What routines help them to be comfortable? What activities are they going to feel a sense of meaning, satisfaction, and be successful? An activity that they might have been very successful at in the early stages of their dementia, that may not work anymore because they have, as their symptoms increase, they lose the ability. So an example we talk about in the activities workshop is using a jigsaw puzzle as an activity. And a lot of us enjoy putting together a jigsaw puzzle. We start with this chaos of pieces on the table, and then slowly we begin to create a framework, and the pieces start to come together. And the more we see it coming together, the more satisfaction we get. And that may be great for our loved ones in the early stages. But at some point, their ability to recognize visual shapes and to be able to connect is going to be declining because the disease is adjust. Instead of using puzzles that have these little multicolored pieces, we get a puzzle that has fewer but larger pieces. And so we're still engaging them with something that they enjoy, but we're presenting it in a form where they can be successful. We don't want them to fail at things, because that's going to take them out of the green into at least the yellow with frustration because they were not successful. We want them to be successful. Sometimes our approaches fail because the environment just isn't conducive. And there can be lots of reasons for the environment impacting and sabotaging our attempts. We might think, well, let's go for a walk. But we get outside and it's a lot colder than we anticipated. Well, I might be able to say, oh, it's cold, but we're just going to be gone for 5 or 10 minutes. It'll be fine. But that's from my perspective, because I can relate to what 5 or 10 minutes is, and I can ignore the discomfort of being cold. My loved one may not have that sense of time. I could say, oh, we'll only be gone for 5 minutes, but 5 minutes may not mean anything to them, and it can feel like hours. We might be gone for 2 minutes, and when are we going to be done with this? Because they can't process and ignore the environment for the benefit that we might get from the walk. So we anticipate those environmental challenges and adjust so that we can help our loved ones be content. It might be chilly, but if there's sun and we can go sit in the sun, then that might be a conducive environment. And then we can engage in a variety of activities as long as our loved ones are comfortable, they are content. So we modify the environment. We have that ability. It might mean, okay, what I had planned isn't going to work, so we're going to do something different. Let's go get a cup of cocoa and have some cookies. Do something different. Find a different environment. We might walk into a room and find that room is too noisy or too dark or too bright. The sun might be shining in the window and there's glare that's, again, we might be able to recognize that discomfort and ignore it, but our loved ones can't. They're going to be solely focused on the discomfort and when are we going to get out of this? So we have to take into account the environment. And we always come back to what's the real need? If we don't address the real need, maybe it's just that they're hungry or thirsty, or maybe there's some pain, or maybe they need to go to the restroom. So there's discomfort that they can't ignore. And when we're observing, watching body language, we can infer what the need is and then do our best to meet that need. So when we recognize a need, when our loved ones say something about their discomfort, their frustration, their anger, however it might be expressed, if we ignore that, we try to, let's just think about something happy. We're denying how they feel. So instead, we want to validate their feelings. We want to acknowledge, let them know that they've been heard. So when we validate their expressions, it's as if we are saying, you have a right to feel the way you do. We're not judging, we're not blaming. That's real for them. And so we need to acknowledge what's real. If they're fearful, we might say, that must be really scary. I am so sorry. I'm going to be here with you. We're going to get through this together. Many times I've seen Judy in a state of anxiety or fear, and I would acknowledge that fear, say, I'm with you. We're in this together. And she would say, you and me. That's right. You and me. We're in this together. So let's think about stress. Stress is real. Stress is our body's natural response to danger. And we need that to survive. If we're confronted with that proverbial saber-toothed tiger, we need the adrenaline to get up and run. We're probably not going to fight in this case. We're going to run. But many times that situation isn't a saber-toothed tiger, it's a house cat. And we need to get that in perspective. Now, I'm not suggesting that we tell our loved ones, oh, don't feel that way. Again, that's discounting their feelings. And it just causes more frustration on their part. So we want to validate it. And then we may change the subject, change the environment, go do something else, use the technique that we call distract and redirect. First we validate, and then distract and redirect. To move out of that place of anxiety and fear. Because I may know this danger isn't real. It may be the result of paranoia, but it doesn't do any good to deny, to help them get over that paranoia and try to explain to them that it isn't real. Maybe they're having an hallucination, and to them it's real, whether it's visual, seeing something that isn't there, or hearing something that isn't there. To them, it's real. What they perceive, what their brain interprets is real, and we acknowledge that. So we can help them overcome stress. And one of the most important things that we do as family caregivers is to deal with our own stress. And so this is a model of overcoming stress that I came across in a publication from the University of Arizona on caring for yourself in challenging times. Well, these are challenging times. So we start in the upper right, empower yourself. And so what we mean is recognize where we do have the ability to influence, to change things. We may not be able to change everything that we'd like to, but there are some things we can change. We can change the environment. If it's too cold, we might adjust the thermostat. That's empowerment. I've taken control, and I'm going to effect change where I can. And when I can help my loved one empower themselves, give them the opportunity to take control and to exercise their ability, then we help to lower their stress level. Number two is move physically, get moving. Lots of research has gone into the benefits of physical exercise. There's a lot of really great research going on right here in Irvine at UCI Mind, and the benefits of exercise for people with memory loss and dementia are really significant. So for our loved ones, it's important that we help them get up and move, whether that's stationary bike, if you can't get outside due to weather or other circumstances, going for a walk, walking the dog, whatever it might be, move. And find the activity that you enjoy. So for me, that's tennis, pickleball, going for a bird walk. Those are all ways that I get out and move, and that's good for me. And I need to do that. That's an investment in my own health, my own well-being, and in Judy's. It's important for her that I take care of myself. Third is create. And we talked about creating things earlier when we talked about the pyramid. And we all have a need to create order from chaos, to take some materials and put them together in a new way that we have some new thing, some beauty. For me, that's often gardening, working in the dirt, getting some flowers, some plants, potting them, putting them in the ground. That's part of the creative process. In previous programs, I've talked about how in the early days of the pandemic, one of the things I did was take a set of wooden TV trays that were just really, really bad shape, ugly. They were about to go out in the trash. And then I looked at them and said, boy, under all those stains and scratches, there's some really beautiful wood. I wonder if I can fix this up. You know, that phrase, I wonder if, I wonder what would happen if. That's what leads to the creative process. That's what leads to the scientific process. To come up with a hypothesis and say, you know, I have a feeling if I do this, we might get a certain result. And then we try it. That's research. We try it. And didn't work, we try something different. That's the creative process. That's research. My Uncle Ross, before he died, he said, I don't make mistakes. I just do research. I like that philosophy of life. So fourth is connect with others. We talked about being connected to other people. It's especially challenging in these days. And yet, when we make an effort to connect, whether we're using technology, maybe it's writing notes, that's becoming a lost art, but a handwritten note is very powerful. If we write an email to our governmental representatives, it has some influence. If I write a note by hand and send it to their office, that has even more impact. And the same is true with the people in our world, in our sphere. A handwritten note makes a huge difference. We all love to get cards, whether it's for our birthday or some other occasion. And so we can relate to how other people enjoy seeing a handwritten note. So last is breathe. As I was saying earlier, I have a tendency to start talking faster, and as a result, I'm not taking a deep enough breath, and so I have to slow down. Take a breath. And when I do that, especially in the presence of my loved one, I'm modeling a behavior that will be good for her too. So I stop, I sit up straight, take a deep breath, maybe 2 or 3. Think about it for a moment before I move on, and then proceed in a relaxed manner. And one of the great benefits is I've lowered my blood pressure, I've slowed my heart rate, and I've lowered the level of cortisol that's coursing through my blood, which is part of the stress response that we need when we're in danger, but we don't want when it's chronic. When our adrenaline and cortisol levels are chronically elevated, that really has many, many negative effects on our body and many systems, including reducing our immune response. So to stay healthy, it's important that we breathe and encourage our loved ones to breathe. So that's really the bottom line. We need to take a breath. So as you're watching right now, I encourage you to just sit up straight, pull your shoulders back, maybe put your hands up over your head to expand your pulmonary capacity and breathe. And smile. It makes a difference. Will make a difference for your loved one, will help them to have a sense of well-being. And you will get that sense of well-being, and you're modeling that for your loved one. So again, if you have questions, please take the opportunity to type those questions in the comments box, and we'll address any questions. We have some workshops that are coming up. Starting tomorrow, our brain boot camp via Zoom will take place. That's a 2-session workshop. Nutrition for brain health, also via Zoom. on December 7th, and a communication workshop that I will be leading on December 17th. So we hope you'll come back for these and take the opportunity to learn some new things, to exercise some skills, to exercise your memory. That's what Brain Boot Camp is all about. When we use and challenge our memory, we sustain our memory longer. So in the chat, we've got links that you can register for these different workshops. So feel free to go to those links and sign up and join in. I will look forward to seeing you myself on the 17th. Lastly, we just want to mention one of our partners, Caregiver Resource Center. They provide services and support for family caregivers, lots of ways that they can help. So you can see those on the screen. You can go to their website, www.caregiveroc.org. They're a great organization, and we appreciate their partnership in a number of projects. And back to connectedness for just a minute, and then we'll wrap up. We have lots of ways that you can connect with us. Our helpline is there. Our helpline staff are trained and experienced, and whatever situation that you are faced with, you'd like to talk through with somebody, please give our helpline specialists a call and allow them to help you walk through your situation and find some alternatives, perhaps some new strategies that you can try. A lot of information is on our Facebook page. We have a great Facebook page. I always learn something there. So go to our Facebook page and like that page, and you'll get notifications through your Facebook feed on things that are coming up. And of course, our website is always available, alzoc.org. So take advantage of those resources. We'd love to hear from you and have the opportunity to provide any kind of support that you might need. So I guess we'll wrap up today. It's been a real joy for me to be here and talk to you about this subject that is important for all of us as family caregivers, to find ways to take care of our loved ones, to maximize their well-being, and along the way, we maximize our own well-being. So thank you again for being with us, and hope to see you next time.